Have you ever stopped to wonder? Why does it feel like you were already behind before your life even began? Before your first paycheck, before your first job application, even before your first dream? You were already in debt. Not just to banks, not just to student loans, but to a system that demanded your submission before you ever had a chance to choose. You were born into a race where the starting gun had already fired, and you were handed weights instead of wings. Your childhood dreams, astronaut, artist, healer, explorer, were beautiful, chaotic, limitless. But the world you entered had already placed price tags on them. Not, can you dream, but can you afford to? They told you to dream big, but not too big. To follow your passion as long as it paid. To be yourself, but not too much. Somewhere along the way, you learned the unspoken rule. Dreams are not for living, they're for selling. Think of the student drowning in loans for a degree that leads to a job that barely pays rent. Think of the artist working night shifts, pouring life into canvases no one will see because rent is due and food doesn't manifest through passion alone. Think of the child who once wanted to build worlds, now stuck coding apps to sell dopamine hits for Silicon Valley's next billion. This is no accident. This is design. From birth, the system plants you in soil laced with expectation and fertilized with fear. It whispers, you are not enough until you produce. You do not belong unless you earn. You are not free unless you buy. So you grow up thinking productivity is virtue, that sleep is weakness, that burnout is a badge of honor. And when you finally question it, when the exhaustion seeps into your bones, when your dreams begin to decay in the corners of your mind, you're told the problem is you, that you just need to hustle harder, manifest more, optimize yourself. But what if the problem was never your motivation? What if it was the cage you were placed in? Because capitalism doesn't just exploit your labor, it commodifies your desire. It doesn't only want your hours, it wants your imagination. It doesn't wait for you to dream. It sells you dreams pre-packaged, algorithm-approved, and empty. You didn't just inherit debt, you inherited a script, one where freedom means buying, where identity means branding, and where dreaming is allowed but only if it serves profit. So here you are, alive, awake, exhausted, and somewhere deep inside, a question lingers like smoke. What was my dream before it was monetized? They say you're free to be whoever you want, but what if the version of you you're choosing from was already manufactured? What if identity itself has become a product? Walk into any store, scroll through any feed, watch any ad. You'll see a million identities, curated, filtered, branded. The artist, the entrepreneur, the wanderer, the minimalist, the fitness guru, the hustler. But look closely. These aren't just expressions of self. They're packages, lifestyles with price tags, personalities with affiliate links. Capitalism doesn't simply sell products, it sells selves. And just like any factory, it needs uniformity, predictability, scalability. So it mass produces dreams, desires, aesthetics. It tells you that to be happy, you need this look, this career, this mindset. And it dresses exploitation in the costume of personal choice. You pick your passion from a drop-down menu. You monetize your hobbies, you brand your trauma, and you post your pain, strategically, of course, for engagement. This isn't self-expression, it's self-commodification. Karl Marx called it commodity fetishism, when the value of things is no longer about their usefulness, but about their symbolic power. Today, it's not just objects. We have become the fetish. A watch isn't a tool for telling time, it's a status signal. A gym membership isn't about health, it's a badge of discipline. And a human being isn't a person, it's a content strategy. You've been taught that your worth is measurable, that your body is a project, that your presence is marketable, that your value lies in how well you fit the demand. So we don't ask, who am I? We ask, what's my niche? And in this factory of dreams, the most dangerous lie is this, that you're choosing this, that you freely decided to hustle, to grind, to market yourself. But freedom without real alternatives isn't freedom. It's just decoration on a cage. And while you optimize your personal brand, the system extracts your soul in silence. every scroll, every like, every ad, every sale. This is how power hides, behind the illusion of choice. You feel like you're building your life, but what you're really building is revenue for someone else. You decorate the prison and call it home, and in the process, your real self, the one that doesn't fit in a monetizable box, slowly begins to disappear. The dreamer, the wanderer, the thinker, the rebel, replaced by algorithms, metrics, aesthetic strategies. And one day, you wake up and realize, you didn't just buy into the dream bought you. What happens to a soul when its worth is measured by output? What becomes of a life when every hour is sold, and nothing sacred remains untouched by profit? You wake up to an alarm not because you're rested, but because you're required. You move through your day not with purpose but with compliance, and you do your work not out of love but because not working means not eating. This is not life. This is survival dressed in the uniform of normalcy. In capitalism, your labor is not yours. The moment you clock in, your time, your presence, your ideas, your emotions, belongs to someone else. Your body is there, but your mind is split, and your spirit is somewhere far behind, gasping for air. Karl Marx called it alienation, when workers become estranged from the product of their labor, from the act of working, from others, and most painfully, from themselves. You build things you'll never own. You provide services you can't afford. You create value you'll never see. And with every passing day, you become less a person and more a function, a cog, a number, a replaceable unit. Think of the teacher who once dreamed of inspiring young minds, now crushed by bureaucracy and standardized tests. Think of the nurse who wanted to heal, but drowns in paperwork and staff shortages. Think of the barista who remembers every name, every smile, but can't pay rent with gratitude. This is the hidden theft, not just of time, but of meaning. You're told to find your passion, but when passion doesn't pay, it dies. You're told to be productive, but when productivity is endless, you collapse. And still, you're made to feel guilty for being tired, ashamed for needing rest, lazy for craving life. This is the cruelty of the system. It alienates you from the very things that make you human. It turns joy into output, creativity into content, and life into labor. And when you finally break, when the burnout turns into anxiety, depression, numbness, they don't question the system. They prescribe you pills. They tell you to meditate. They sell you therapy apps, as if the problem is your inability to adapt, not the brutality of the machine you were thrown into. But you are not a machine. You were never meant to function without feeling, and deep inside, something still remembers. What it felt like to create for joy, to rest without guilt, to live without being extracted. That memory, it's still there, buried under deadlines, KPI meetings, and fake smiles, waiting to be unearthed. Because love and labor were never meant to be enemies. But under capitalism, even your soul must clock in. You open your phone, you scroll, you click, you like. But have you ever asked, who's scrolling you? In a world where every thought can be tracked, every click analyzed, every desire predicted, are you still choosing, or are you being chosen? They told you technology would set you free, that information would liberate you, that the internet would make you limitless, but instead of freedom, we got filters. Instead of community, we got comment sections. Instead of truth, we got targeted ads. And behind every screen, behind every swipe, there's something watching, an algorithm. Not one built to understand you, but one built to monetize you. It doesn't care who you are, only what you consume. It studies you, learns your fears, feeds you rage, not to enlighten you, but to keep you scrolling, to keep you anxious, to keep you consuming. You think you're choosing what to see, but the algorithm already knows what will keep you addicted. It knows that fear clicks better than facts, that envy lasts longer than joy, that outrage drives engagement, and so it curates your identity, not based on truth, but on profitability. You become a data point in a digital experiment you never consented to, a subject in a psychological operation dressed up as entertainment, and the result? A world where ideology is not debated, it's embedded, not in speeches or textbooks, but in memes, trends, influencers. The algorithm doesn't just decide what you see, it decides who you become. Because when every opinion is shaped by a feed, when every desire is guided by metrics, when every version of you is algorithmically constructed, what remains of you? You begin to perform instead of live. You share to stay visible. You conform to stay liked. And slowly, your inner voice, the one that once whispered dreams and questions and truths, grows silent beneath the noise of curated selves. This is not freedom. This is programming. A digital factory of conformity masked as self-expression. A marketplace of identity where the highest bidder owns your attention. Karl Marx warned of the false consciousness, a state where the oppressed adopt the worldview of their oppressors. Today, that worldview comes with push notifications. The algorithm doesn't just reflect culture, it engineers it. And in doing so, it keeps you docile, distracted, divided. Because a distracted mind won't question. A divided people won't unite. And a person who believes their thoughts are their own will never rebel. But you can feel it, can't you? That nagging sense that something's off. That beneath the likes and retweets, you're losing something sacred. That maybe the most revolutionary act today is to disconnect long enough to remember who you were before the algorithm told you. Because if the algorithm decides who you are, who's deciding the algorithm? What if the system was never broken? What if it was always designed this way? What if every disappointment, every burnout, every failed dream wasn't your failure, but its success? From the moment you could imagine, they've been selling you a future. Work hard and you'll make it. Follow the rules and you'll be free. Stay positive and everything will work out. But what they didn't tell you is that the game was rigged, that the board was set long before you took your first breath, that the ladder you're climbing doesn't lead to freedom but to exhaustion. And when you finally look around, really look, you see the truth. You're not the only one. There are millions like you, tired, disconnected, haunted by a dream that doesn't feel like theirs anymore. A generation born into debt, raised on algorithms, trained to sell themselves, rewarded for obedience, punished for slowing down. And somewhere deep inside, a voice starts to rise, faint but undeniable. This isn't living. Because the dream they gave you was a prison with golden walls, comfortable enough to stay, shiny enough to distract, efficient enough to keep you doubting yourself instead of the system. But that doubt, that crack in the wall, is where the revolution begins. You don't need to destroy the dream, you need to reclaim it. Take it back from the metrics, from the branding, from the profit margins. Remember what it felt like to create just to create, to rest without shame, to speak without fear of cancellation or cancellation of your income. You are not a brand. You are not a product. You are not a content strategy. You are a human being. And your dreams, your real dreams, were never meant to be bought, sold, or optimized. They were meant to guide you, stretch you, free you. And yes, reclaiming them will be hard, because unlearning a lifetime of programming is like waking up from a deep, sweet coma. Everything hurts at first. You'll feel lost, alone, confused. But you're not alone, because once you see the system, you begin to find others who see it too. And together you start to build something new, something real. Not a marketplace of identities, but a collective of dreamers. Not a brand strategy, but a human story. A life where dreams are not monetized, where worth is not tied to output, where love is not performance, where existence itself is enough. As Karl Marx once said, the philosophers have only interpreted the world in various ways. The point, however, is to change it. And maybe that change begins not with revolution in the streets, but with the quiet, radical act of reclaiming the dream they tried to sell you. Have you ever felt like your life isn't truly yours? Like you've been living inside someone else's blueprint, working, scrolling, surviving, not because you chose it, but because you were born into it? What would your life look like if you could dream again without permission? If you could live without selling yourself? if you could breathe without owing anyone? This system was built to keep you chasing versions of yourself that were never meant to be real, to confuse consumption with joy, to turn survival into a story of personal failure. But now, you see how they priced your dreams before you could even name them. You see how your soul was slowly rented out, hour by hour, post by post. You see that the exhaustion you feel isn't weakness, it's resistance. You are waking up. And that awakening is dangerous, because a conscious worker stops being a cog, a conscious dreamer stops being a product, a conscious soul stops being obedient. So ask yourself, what was your dream before they monetized it? What part of you still remembers how to live for real? And what would happen if you stopped performing and started reclaiming? You don't have to have all the answers. You just have to start asking better questions. If this spoke to something buried inside you, stay with us. This isn't just a video. It's a movement of remembering, a rebellion of the soul. Subscribe, comment your thoughts, and join us for the next chapter of this awakening.